Hello everybody. I'm Guillaume Bouchard, CEO of Bloomsbury AI. We are a tech addict founding team where I worked many years for Xerox as a natural language and machine learning researcher. And my two co-founders, Luis and Sebastian, are German and Mexican, and they are also passionate about one thing, understanding language. How many of you find it normal to pay hundreds of euros just to get an advice about a visa issue? How many of you find it normal to wait months to get an appointment to a good specialist doctor? We don't find it normal, and we think that technology, or AI, can help by creating an AI that can scale expertise. What does it mean? It means that an expert can teach an AI that they can then answer questions for many more people. The main issue is that nobody wants to teach the computer. But there is a solution. A lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise is actually existing. It is written, it is in documents. Maybe you have heard that last week or 2 weeks ago, there is a human level ability for the computer to read. What does it mean? It means you ask a question on a document and the computer gives you an answer. This is our focus, and this is what I would like to demo to you today. So if you go on our website, you take a textual document. So we could take PDF images if you want, but today we are focused on understanding language, and especially regulation. This is a type of document that nobody wants to read, that contains a lot of information that you have to know. For example here, if you ask what is the maximal value of a gift, it search and find £200. But you can ask, what is a gift? And we are lucky that the answer is there. Anything of value, including food, beverage, tickets, and so on. So you can ask many other questions, such as during a negotiation, can I invite a customer for dinner? So in this case, it highlights the piece of regulation. So you can view that as a really long document containing a lot of rules, and it highlights exactly the rules that should be applied in your case. We can go on and ask many other questions on this small piece of text. It's relatively easy because the text is small, but we are working on very long documents. And so, for example, there is a very complex European regulation about financial instruments. It's called MiFID. And we can ask questions in a more dedicated interface about some regulation. So the MiFID, maybe not of you, very few of you are familiar with that, but we can ask what is multilateral system? Multilateral system. So when we go, it's like a search engine. It reads all the documents and finds, for example, the meaning. A multilateral system means a system of facility and so on. It comes from 100 pages of regulation. It finds the acronym, MTF means a multilateral system, but it also finds example of a multilateral system. If you look further in the results, MTF means a multilateral system. Regulated market means a multilateral system. Regulated market, yeah, so the last one is not a good example, but you can validate and give a feedback loop to the system that will improve over time and be better at understanding regulation because we are closing the feedback loop. We can do many applications of machine reading. Another one is just a plugin that we have created, a Chrome plugin. You can you have the tutorial online on our website. You can now install a Chrome plugin where you can ask questions. For example, this is today's Meetup, so you can say who hosts the event today. Hopefully it will find Fly Ventures, and who is presenting. Me and Alice and so on. So we have the list of speakers which are represented. So it's a general purpose algorithm that is supposed to read a lot of documents. So obviously we have trained it by asking a lot of people, and these people were paid 10 cents per question answered on a huge amount of various data sets. Of course, if we try it on a more complex data, it won't work perfectly, and we need to train it, but everybody knows that machine learning is all about data. A final application, it's called information extraction. For example, here you have a Google Sheet where you have some description, so it's called the Form 10K, it's an American description of annual return of companies. And you can ask questions in columns and get the answer immediately. So for example, here you would like, instead of what is the date of the report, what is the annual revenue. So you don't have to read all these 10K documents. You can just ask the question, and then it is basically asking the question to all of these documents supposedly in real time. Actually, it's slow because of Google Sheets. It's not slow, but due to algorithms that has been distributed on many machines in a cluster. So that's all for the demo. I have obviously a lot of things to say about the product, but I think it's an interactive session, and I'm happy to get some of your questions.
Mic, and you can just raise your hand.
Running.
Hi. I'm quite loud anyway. Hi. Works? Okay.
Yeah, it works.
Hi, my name is Marco. I'm from Holland. Probably from the sounds of it, you're French. From data science perspective, I'm quite interested in how do you deal with this in cross-language settings? And how do you infer context in text to make it a bit more tricky?
So there are two questions. So the first one is cross-lingual. So that's a reason somehow why I created this company in London. It's because English is the international language, and it's much easier to develop NLP proof of concept in English. And now the machine translation is so accurate that you can translate documents from one language to another using an API, a translation API, and then train the model. It's not as perfect as human translation, but it's an easy way to already start with something that works in many different languages. Otherwise, we would have to label all the data, but all the approaches that we are dealing with are based on deep learning, so end-to-end systems that is not depending on language-specific grammars. So the algorithm would be exactly the same in different languages. The only tiny difference is how do you lemmatize, how do you translate that? But it's
So what you're saying, you just have to retrain?
Yeah, you have to train one model per language, right. And, but it's also possible to have a universal model, as Google has shown in one of their pivot language. So you can translate any document using a universal representation, but that's not what we're doing today. We have one model per language. And for, what was your other question?
Second one, how do you infer context? So for
yeah.
example, in legal documents, a lot of things are usually defined in certain contexts, and understanding that context is quite tricky.
Yeah, this is very tricky. So the way we do it, we handle the context is by the size of the question. So if we limit the size of the question, you can't give too much context, and we incrementally increase the size of the question by saying, oh, I'm a manager, does it apply to that? Or oh, I'm a company located in France and operating in England. So you give more context, and then the way we deal with that is by developing algorithms that can extract the context and reuse it at the right. But I don't have time here to explain the technical detail. We have a strong research team that is looking at a technique which is called multi-hop reasoning, basically trying to infer some of the context, apply it, and see if there is enough information, and re-ask the question until it finds a solution. It's called the neural theorem prover.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Hey, this is Lucas. Do you judge on the knowledge? Do you say when you're having certain texts, maybe academic stuff or legal stuff, do you say, hey, we found this part of the answer of the text now given in the text, but we also found other texts or other information that's contracting that, and we're saying maybe what you have here in your text is not right? So are you able to give a validation of what you read there?
So you're meaning fact-checking?
Yeah, maybe some judgment
consolidation and aggregation of information. Yeah, we are working on it, but it's very hard. So the accuracy today is very difficult. For example, here you can ask a factual question: am I allowed to accept a gift of £2,000? The answer should be no, but it's very hard to answer no. What we are good at is identifying which part of the legislation should apply. But to be able to say yes or no, it's related to your question. So basically, is it a fake news or is it a true news? And we need to aggregate and to understand really how the words come together and how the logic is applied. This is what we are working on. But first, we make a product that works. And then we try to answer these more difficult questions that really imply strong reasoning.
Okay, thank you very much. Hakan.
Anyone else?
Thanks. So I guess before you can give an answer, the data you actually give out needs to be labeled. So for example, if you ask for the speaker, and your name would need to be labeled in the text. So does your algorithm label the data itself, or can you only basically answer questions to text which have pre-labeled data?
No, of course. This is all about generalization. So predicting what you have already labeled would be cheating. So in this case, obviously, we have not labeled it ahead of time. It's the beauty of these systems that are able to generalize. You have never seen a text, so there is no label, and you can still answer meaningful answers. But it's very important, this labeling process. It's paying a lot of people to answer questions. On the way you ask a question, the quality of these labels have a strong influence on the ability of the algorithm to be accurate. Okay.
One more. Right, last question.
So you're pretty far in your stage of the product. What was the first MVP, or what was the functionality of the MVP, or how could you introduce your first product?
Yes, so what we are focusing on is compliance on regulation. So this is why this example here about regulation, so gift and entertainment policies for banks, they have many policies, and what they would like is to have a bot that can answer any question anytime. So for example, you're traveling and you don't know if you should accept an invitation to the disco. You have to read the regulation. Nobody's doing that. So that's the first MVP that we are doing with a bank. The main issue is time of response. So it's just going for months before we have something which is a proper proof of concept.
Okay, but the first thing what you were launching is like this, or what? This is kind of a step ahead of the MVP, or what?
What do you mean?
I mean, like this what you have now?
It's an API, so what we're doing is an API, and it's integrated within the bank web services.
But your MVP had less functionality, or not?
Yes, it has a very basic functionality, which is answering. So you ask a question, you get an answer.
Okay.
So now we have a confidence interval, we have better visualization and things like that.
Thanks so much, Guillaume.
Thanks.